Greetings and welcome to this Deep Delight universe. My name is Lakshmi Kennedy. I'm the director of the nonprofit New Future Society. And here in Deep Delight, it's a universe where we explore different worlds of wisdom. There's light and there's also dark delight. There is darkness, really trying to sustain the complexity of the path of wisdom. So today I'm very, 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 very happy, and it's a great pleasure for me to welcome a very wise man, Doug Van Houten. Welcome.
Thank you. Good. I'm so glad to be here, Lakshmi. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone.
Oh, great. Thanks, Doug. I just want to say that I met Doug and I took a course with him, and something that I love about your presence, Doug, is this warmth, this intimacy that we feel with you. And I wanted to talk a little bit about your work so that we can really get a context of who you are and what you do in the world. Okay.
Yes.
So Doug draws his wisdom from the natural world, from depth psychology, eco-psychology, dreams, poetry, and what he calls soul furthering practices, like the way of counsel, vision fasting, trance dancing, and conversations. This is mysterious. Conversations with the more than human world. He feels a great vocation to support others as they uncover their unique gifts and transforming their lives. And beyond this beautiful offering, he is also a student of refined Hakomi. This I find really beautiful. He's a beekeeper. That's amazing. I've come to know his artwork, and it's so profoundly beautiful. So he's a visual artist. He is a heart-centered activist, also a yoga instructor. And as I came to know him, he is a guide for Animas Valley Institute. If you would like to know more about Animas Valley and their work, you can go to their website, animas.org. And if you would like to know more about Doug, and I know that you will because this is going to be an incredible meeting, you can find him at bodyartsoul.org. Welcome, Doug. I invite you, please, to bring us to this space together. I'd love for you to offer some words or perhaps some poetry.
Yes, I'd love to offer a poem. I read a lot of poetry in my programs because it's such a great way to enter into space together. And I thought about starting us off with Mary Oliver's The Journey, which many folks know or somewhat familiar with. But I always like to say, even if you are familiar with this poem, to allow yourself to hear something new, because every time I hear it, I hear something different in it. It's a real gem, and it really speaks to the heart of the work that I do. So The Journey. One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundation, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the one thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. So the journey.
Thank you so much, Doug. I can really feel that. And this new voice, we're going to invite people to explore these new voices today. And I would love for you to tell us, Doug, right now, what is inspiring you, and what are the daily practices that really help you connect?
Yeah, gosh, that's a great question. You know, one of the first things I do every morning is I get into my body. And this is something I do religiously. Every day I get on the floor and I do stretches. And I connect with my body. I do some deep breathing. And I also check in with my emotions. You know, what kind of dreams I'm having. What are the deeper conversations, you know, that are there before I begin my plans, right? Before I hit that to-do list. Because I don't want to forget this other conversation, right? And then I, you know, I have a dog, Frankie, who I call my spiritual director, literally. And we go out on a walk for him, you know, to do his business. And we go down by the pond, or we walk down the other way to the road. I live on a farm, and we always visit the pond at some point during the day. But that's a practice too, and go say hello to the pond and the beings on the land. So that's a couple of things that I do right there, you know, on a daily basis. But even more, I could say that, you know, I don't do this every day, but I do look at my dreams often, because the dream is revealing, you know, some deeper, or these deeper conversations that my own psyche, my own soul, my own deeper knowing, my own inner guides, my own inner wisdom is having with my conscious everyday self, like in offering these love letters to that part of me saying, hey, Doug, check this out. I want you to know this, you know, because I could live on the surface forever of my psyche, which culture's doing pretty much, living on the surface. So we want to help people get down to the depths. So anyways, I do this every day with myself to check in what's deeper in there. So that's some of what I do on a daily basis. And oh, one other thing is that I also do take a long walk every day with my dog. And I love to imagine the world from his nose. I know that might sound kind of crazy to people, but it's like he's so present to what's right there in front of him through that nose, his senses, right? So I find that a great teacher, the qualities of presence that he has, and honesty to being true to who he is and his own, you know, particular way of being that mystery endowed him with, right? So he's a real role model example for me. So, yeah.
That's really beautiful. I can really see you there with him. And it's amazing how the animals have this real living in the present. Thank you for sharing these daily things. I'm very curious about the dreams. We'll see if we'll look at that a little later on, because I know you have like a really interesting wisdom, a way of reading and understanding and feeling those. But I'd like for you to tell us, Doug, about this soul calling that you felt when you began this path, because I know that in your own personal life, your mother is a therapist, and that you've explored many different streams of wisdom. But when you arrived at this soul calling with Animas, can you tell us a little bit about that time? How was this, if we can classify awakening, and
Yeah.
for all of us here, like, would you could recommend like a little, like a small step that we could take to maybe precipitate our own like moment of awakening?
Right. Yeah, definitely. You know, I have been on, I feel like, a journey the journey. I've been on a journey for a long time, in many ways, stretching beyond you could say the social and psychic limitations of culture, to find, a deeper, truer way of being alive on earth at this time. I mean, collectively we're destroying everything, right? And so there's something wanting to awaken in us, and I think on individually as well. And I always thought, like, I was looking at culture saying, there's something kind of not right about this. There's something like not right about my family. So I've always been on this trajectory. My mother, I think, started it too with getting to become a therapist, like asking deeper questions about her own life, which, that instilled in me. So for decades, I feel like I've been on this journey exploring like the edge of the village. That's where change comes from, the edges. And so I've been like on the edges there, and, trying to bring something back for my people, for myself, but for my people as well. And so I've just been on this journey for a long time. And I remember, about 20 years ago, I felt like I was, doing really interesting work in the world. And life was okay, and it was good, it was going well, but I always felt like there was something missing, and then I came to Animas's work, and Bill Plotkin, who's the founder of Animas, he brought in nature, the nature piece, and then he brought in the depth psychology piece with soul. And it was like all the sparks connected for me. And then even more, then I feel like, oh my gosh, now I've got these mentors to help, you could say, guide me more deeply into, like Mary Oliver's poem, there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own. I had trouble getting to that on my own. The culture wasn't inviting it, not really, not fully. And so anyways, that helped me. And so, once I found this work, my life took a left turn, and I haven't looked back since. And I've been on this tear of loving this, and so in a way, I think, like, your listeners, like relating to my journey, maybe in some ways, like thinking about your own life, what is it that you're longing for in your own life that maybe you're having trouble connecting to? Maybe there's often people feel a crisis in their life. I can't live this way anymore. So if you're experiencing those kinds of things, which I was for decades, in a way, that might be something to wonder about for yourself. Like, oh, I am experiencing that. And what are those deeper conversation or voices, that like in the poem again, that want to come alive in me, my new voice, my true voice, my authentic voice, or my deeper voice. I'm here to have a deeper conversation with the world than I'm being offered by the culture at large, right? So yeah, we want to help people to have that larger conversation. And many people, one last thing I'll say, many people feel like they're in a kind of a thin cocoon in their life. Like I'm in a journey of transformation, but I kind of just keep stalling out. I'm not really like sure, where do I go with this? What do I do with this energy, this longing for something can't quite articulate, And so again, for me, it was like, it blew the doors open. It's like, oh, like, there were my own internal epiphanies that wanted to be known by me, and to give space for that, my own deep wisdom about where I belong and what I'm here to do. And so that's just a couple of ideas there. Maybe you have some other further questions about that.
I think that that's so intriguing when you say asking ourselves, what am I longing at this time? I think that perhaps we all intuitively have, a lot of access to that way of like connecting. And actually what you say like beautifully flows into what I would like to ask next from you, Doug, which is, it has to do with this really beautiful map or system that Bill Plotkin and the Animas Valley have created and teach, and you are this ambassador for this map. And in this map, it calls to become whole, not perfect. And I think, first of all, that's like a really, really important fundamental directive for us in the West, because we have a lot of complexes about trying to be perfect everywhere. And of course, it's impossible.
Right.
And so also, you talked about this, the role of nature. And Bill, in his book, Wild Mind, talks about the importance of the archetype of the wild indigenous one. Yay. Yeah. So I recommend that everybody reads this book. It has been so beautiful and revolutionary and inspiring for me. And can you tell us about this wildness? What is it? Why is it important for us? How can we connect to it? I know you have so much wisdom about that.
Yeah, and yeah, in the Wildline book, the model you're referring to, Bill calls it the nature-based map of the human psyche. And it's rooted and grounded in the 4 directions of nature, and or the 4 days of the times of the day, or the 4 seasons as well. And you know, each of those directions have particular archetypes. And when you look at all 4 of the directions, north, south, east, and west, the cardinal directions, you can see that Bill has several archetypes. And if we cultivate all of those archetypes, this is what we do with our work. We help people to cultivate those archetypes, become more fully human. And if you go deeply enough into each one, it will change you. It will challenge you, right? Because none of us have done them fully, and we will never fully complete the task of being whole. Jung said, you'll never be finished with being whole. But I like to say, but do take breaks. Yes. So yes, and in the South, on the model is the wild indigenous one, right? And so these archetypes here, you know, here's the in the northern hemisphere. In the South, it would be the opposite. But let me just say in the North, because I'm in the North, on the high. In the East, it's coming up, it's morning. But in the South now, it has risen to the midday. So life is happening here on this time of the year, of summer, of midday. And the fruits of our wildness and our indigenosity and our enchantedness and our emotionality and our sensuality and our eroticism and our indigenosity, if I haven't said that, are ripening. And so these are the qualities that are in the South here. You know, this is the one who is, you know, wild, and we're using that in the sense of like authentic. This is what nature endowed me with. This is the quality. This is who I am authentically, not like I'm going to be wild and deranged and tear up something, you know, but just true to who I am, true to who the soft animal of my body is. You know, this is the one who's comfortable in their own body and on the body of Earth. And before, you could say, before any cultural shaping happens, right? So true authenticity. There's also the indigenous one. And this is the one in us who knows, you could say, like the bioregion, the watershed that we live in, knows the species there, knows where water is, how to grow food, knows about the equinoxes and the solstices, and knows, you know, what kind of bird that is. You know, whose hoot is that? Whose scat? Think about people in our modern world. Most people don't know much of that at all. It's because we've lost our connection we've lost our wild indigenous one, but this is also the one that can connect with emotions when they get stirred up. We're not hold them back, but allow ourselves to feel all of our emotions and our feelings, right? This is also the one that is enchanted by the wild others that we live on this earth with. And this is the one who can be sensual, with self and with others and with the earth and the beings and the water, and smell and taste and touch and have mud on our bodies, right? And all of those things that kids know how to do so well, right? And then even the erotic eros, to me, which is a kind of love or bonding, you could say. To me, what holds the moon to the earth is eros. There's an energy in that. We want to help people to be alive to that energy, that love, that bondedness, that creativity, right? That passion for life. And the South Indigenous one knows how to do that. And in the Western modern world, this one gets repressed. It gets shut down. And often by the time many of us are, in our teens, a lot of that, we psycho spiritually get downsized, you could say, and we put a lot of that in the shadow. It's too dangerous to live that. It makes people uncomfortable to be that truthful, that wild, that authentic. You upset the apple cart. And it's also, quite frankly, it's kind of seen by our patriarchal culture as feminine. It's from the neck down. We kind of live from the head up. I'm grossly stereotyping, but you get what I mean. That lives in the depth of our culture. We live from the head up, right? This is all messy and let's get rid of it. Yeah. So yeah, that's the wild indigenous one in a nutshell. Yeah.
It's so intriguing to me. I'm finding this wild indigenous one to be so enchanting, and everything you described, I feel like, is just so attractive to our hearts, to our bodies, to our inner deep beings. And I wanted now for us to move in the nature-based map in the West. There is something that you all call the Muse Beloved. And she, if it's a she or he, is also very intriguing to me, and have been really, really fascinating, and has to do with many facets. I'm just going to bring like a little glimpse that has to do with the darkness. And why is it, Doug, that we should develop a love affair with the darkness, and how can it help us in this process of healing and holing? I think there's so much to learn there. I think that from the depth psychology place, there's so much wisdom, and also everything that has to do with this beautiful mystery traditions from all over the world, and they're like the symbolism, the metaphors. I would love if you could please just help us to navigate, to understand it, and perhaps give us like a little secret, like glimpse, so that we could perhaps create a little practice there.
Totally. Well, let me first forewarn your listeners, because this is these are hard archetypes to grok or understand. Again, the South and the West on Bill's model, they're the most suppressed archetypes in again, the contemporary modern world. And the West, again, it's the imagination in the West. This is where the sun is setting down now. And it's, going down. There's a descent with the sun. It's not another period of lightness, but now it's a period of darkness. Our own psyches There's a period of lightness and a period of darkness. We're sort of darkness avoidant in many places on the planet. It's like, that's like, we don't go there. It's kind of taboo. But actually, the dark is fruitful, very fruitful, just like it is for nighttime creatures. And it's like it for our own psyches, it's fruitful. It's like, what is true about you that lives in the unknown, the dark, or the unconscious, might be another way of talking about the darkness. Also love the image of a tree. It can be fed by the light, but it's also fed by the roots that go down into the darkness. And so the light, would be reaching up to spirit, merging with the one. I'm giving kind of big picture context here. So the light would be merging with the one, and that's more the east, where the sun rises, and there's the big picture. Now the west, the sun is going down. And we're not seeing so far and wide. The east is extroverted, and Bill's model, the west is introverted. And it's more like, now I want to merge with the mystery of my own existence. The east, it's I want to merge with the one, the bigness of the one thing of all things. Now it's like, oh, the mystery of this. Like, what is this? Who is this? What is this? What is this one here to do? Right? And often what we find is that that's in the shadow. It's the not yet known. It's the waiting to be known. It's often tied, like earlier we were talking about your longing. It's often tied to our longing. There's some longing that we have of, like, how do we pollinate the world? How do we become our imago self? Like go from caterpillar to butterfly. And the West on Bill's model, these are the archetypes of the muse and the inner beloveds or beloveds. And these are the guides to soul. Soul is, with our definition is where do I belong? Where's my ultimate place of belonging? And saying it that another way, it's like, what's mine to do in life? What's like my destiny? What are my particular skills and gifts for the world that the world is longing for, and I'm longing to deliver? And in my imago self, when we reach that image of our adult, of the images that live in us, right? The visions, the epiphany, when we live those into the world, we go off and we pollinate. But we got to go on a journey like the caterpillar into the darkness. Like, can you imagine what it's like for a caterpillar to go in the chrysalis? There's a journey of, like, surrender. There's a journey of changing, of transformation, just like the journey of this poem. It was a late and a wild night and a dark night, full of fallen stones, branches and stones. So it's difficult. Think about the caterpillar, how harrowing that journey is, just like Mary Oliver, right? But again, we're going to go into that cocoon to hear that voice, those voices that are uniquely mine, that got covered up, or that I'm now ready to live into the world. But I got to go on a journey to get there. And all cultures have been doing this forever. And at Animas, we want to help people to do that again, to embody soul, not to spirit realization. I mean, we want people to do that too. That's needed. And that's what, when we talk about spirituality, that's what most people are doing. We're offering soul embodiment. Where do I belong? And what's my gift? And so we help take people on this journey of transformation. But their own psyche wants to do this. We're just helping nudge them along. Yeah. That's a lot. I threw out a lot there. So yeah.
No, it's so juicy, everything. I think it's wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you.
Great.
I love this idea of pollinating the world, and something that I feel so attracted to in the work that you all do is that the complete vision. I feel like it's so wide and so complete,
Mm,
in the sense that my life has been almost 3 decades dedicated to what you all make a reference to, like the upper world or the ascendant or transcendent spiritualities, perhaps of Eastern philosophies, and how fundamental and important is the work that you're doing to take us into this meaning. And I would like now to say a quote from Bill Plotkin, so that you can elaborate a little bit more of how we can find out how to pollinate the world in our unique ways. So this quote is taken from an article that was published in 2017 in a place called Purpose Rising. And the article is called "The Realm of Purposed, Least Realized, but Most Essential in a Time of Radical Global Change." Like really bringing into our attention the importance of meaning for today's world, you know, what we're going through collectively in today's world. And what Bill says, he says, everyone yearns for and needs a purpose that can be embodied, a meaning that can be lived. Our mortality demands it of us, and our love for our own life, for all living things, and for community pours itself into the world like a prayer through our deepest purpose. Doug, do you think that you could give us some suggestions beyond, you know, coming close to you or Animas, you know, receiving your mentoring or the processes or the programs that you all teach? What suggestions do you have for us to find or start like looking for these beautiful ways, like the caterpillar? I love that image of going into the cocoon and the surrender there. Could you give us some suggestions?
Absolutely. Here's two really strong ones, and I'll go back to the Muse and the Beloveds. That the Muse is this intrapsychic part of us that is directly, you could say, connected to soul. Some think that it is soul. The Muses are soul. But regardless, I like to think of it as like what really amuses you profoundly in life. It's different for all of us. And we want to help people to live a muse-directed life. If you're following your muse, if you're not following your muse, you're going to be depressed, full of anxiety and lostness and alienation. This is an intrapsychic part of you that's amused. Nobody else is amused by the same things you are. We're all unique, like a thumbprint and a snowflake. And so to follow what our muse is, you know, attracted to, that will take you. And that lives in all of us. You know, the muse and the muses are so important. The Greeks had 9 muses. They didn't have 9 muses they didn't have 9 gods or goddesses for anything else. That's how important the muse was, to follow your own muses. There you go, right there. And you know, often what that brings up for a lot of people is they don't have enough wholeness, or they have fragmentation that stand in the way. It's like, oh my God, that's what the muse is asking me to do. That's too big. That's too or too exposing or risky. Because the muse will ask you to show up in the world more beautifully, more fully, more wholly. Like we're helping people to become more fully human, more whole. And again, this part is repressed. The more beautifully people show up in the world, the more they're going to, you know, change it. And they're going to bump up against a lot of stuff, right? The bad voices that keep shouting their bad advice, right? So yeah, to follow your muses, whatever you're deeply amused by. And then also, you know, following your deep longing. We talked about that earlier. What is it that you're really longing for? And in like, you know, you could say like a deep longing. Not like, because I have like, I kind of, you could call, I mean, this is kind of silly maybe, but like they're shallow longings, you know, not to live just in shallow longings forever, but like the deep longing, like what am I really longing for in this life? You know, like I said earlier, I could live on the surface of my psyche forever, but my deep longing, and often people, you know, have difficulty realizing that deep longing. There's things often I mentioned earlier, you know, fragmented or wounded parts standing in the way, addictive parts standing in the way, escapist parts, or real inner critics, etc. All kinds of what we call subpersonalities, fragmented parts that could be standing in the way. And there could be the need to cultivate some of your wholeness, some of these archetypes that we're talking about, like the wild indigenous one, or the nurturing generative one of the North, or the innocent sage fool trickster of the East, you know, or the muse or inner beloveds of the West, right? Again, cultivating all those will bring us into a more full human life. And ultimately at Animas, we want to help people to find soul. That's where you find purpose and meaning. We are meaning-making creatures. We need to feel and belong and contribute to our community and to our world. And a lot of the upper world traditions, you could say, kind of skirt that or omit that, or don't talk about it. And many of them actually have it in their philosophies, but again, it gets repressed. The South and the West on Bill's model gets repressed in our patriarchal world mindset, you could say, right? Yeah.
Well, I am completely fascinated. I am swimming in such delightful waters right now. This invitation you bring us of the intrapsychic, that means like the inner psychic part of ourselves. Could you just clarify that word for us?
Yeah.
Intrapsychic?
Yeah, intrapsychic. It's a facet of our own psyche.
Great.
Like our psyche is all of what we are. And you know, I actually have a poem about the muse that might
Yes,
help
yes,
describe this.
please.
Okay, this is called When I Met My Muse by William Stafford. And it's a short one, it's a beauty. When I met my muse, I glanced at her and took my glasses off. They were still singing. They buzzed like a locust on the coffee table and then ceased. Her voice belled forth and the sunlight bent. I felt the ceiling arch and knew that nails up there took a new grip on whatever they touched. I am your own way of looking at things, she said. When you allow me to live with you, every glance at the world around you will be a sort of salvation. And I took her hand. When I met my muse. So when we follow the muse, we're dazzled. We are brought so alive that like he said, like the nails, our feet take a new grip, right? And there's some part of us that knows how to be here, some deep inner wisdom that knows how to be on earth and where we ultimately belong. The muse is the one that dreams up evolutionary, visionary, and even revolutionary possibilities. You can see why that one would be suppressed. Yeah, if you're going to rock the world, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you for that, reading that beautiful poem. I think that you and Animas and the way that you express is so alive. And that's how I feel right now. Like I feel so inspired, and how important in some ways, because the path of wisdom is not an easy one. In
Mm,
fact, I think perhaps it's the most difficult journey we can take as human beings, perhaps. And
mm,
so to be able to fall in love and to be able to nourish and feel alive in the middle of the light and the darkness, I think that that is like a super, super secret. And it's really emblematic of what you teach and what I
mm.
felt taking these teachings. Um, I would like to know, are there any last words that you'd like to share with us, dear Doug, and or any last suggestions to all of us that are here who are looking to become more and more enraptured with this path of wisdom?
Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, there's a lot I could say. I'll try and limit it. uh, one is to, check out Bill's model with all these archetypes and assess, and even read the Wild Mind book, you know, and assess your own access to these facets of wholeness, these archetypes. Maybe even do some delving into your sub personalities and see what kind of work you might need to do, right? And again, to become more fully human and alive, right? That's one possibility. Another would be to cultivate a love affair with the earth. In our work, we say that a true adult, this is not anybody's model. We say that a true adult is one whose primary orientation is the more than human world, where humans are just a subset. And so we invite people to have a love affair with the earth, because these are the wild others that we share this earth with, and they can teach us so much. And plus we can learn so much about how to belong and how to grow, and nature mirrors back to us so much, and it's so true to itself. We're the ones with our reflexive consciousness to kind of wander off, and get into trouble in our creativity, right? So anyways, so like coming back to home, to earth, that would be another great thing, have that deep love affair, wander in wild places, not with oh, I got to get from point B to point C, no, just allow the soft animal of your body to love what it loves out on the earth, and wander and let yourself fall in love with the earth. Spend lots of time on the earth, and you will be blessed and guided with awakening, you could say, right? So there's a couple of things right there that you could do, check out the work at Animas, what we do at Animas. We do online programs. We help people to cultivate on these programs. They're very accessible. We have a lot of grant money that we're trying to make available to other countries besides the US. So hopefully that will happen. So yeah.
That's amazing. I think that something that I really, really love about your work, Doug, and this whole vision is that it invites us into this place of great humility, at the same time, great celebration. And I think the capacity to become part of nature and at the same time celebrate and grow in our wholeness is such an art. And I think that you're great artists. So I just want to say, from all of us here in the universe of deep delight, from me, Lakshmi, thank you so much for your time, for showing up here with us. Very, very grateful. And if we would like to reach you, how's the best way to find you or your work, Doug?
Yeah, my website you mentioned at the beginning, the bodyartsoul.org. And then also there's Animas, which is www.animas.org or com, I can't remember. And there's all of it, list all of our programs on there. So that's one way to find me. Yeah. Those are two ways. Yeah. Yeah.
Dearest Doug, thank you so much. I send you all of our love here from Latin America, from Argentina. And until the next time.
All right. Thank you.